All right, so what happens if you drag, for example, let's just run this layout here, and or we can run the debug layout here. And what happens if we drag it and we put it in the wrong box? Okay, this doesn't look cool, although actually it does kind of look neat how we can kind of put that in there. But you get the idea though. Like what happens when we drag in the wrong box? All right, we need to find a way to deal with that here. Well, it's actually quite simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say drag blue box on drop. And so what that means is that when you're dragging, so if I just run this again, or run the debug layout, when we're dragging on the drop, so I've stopped dragging it, we're going to go and do something. Okay, so we're going to say drag, and we're going to set the drag block to, we're going to set the position to just simply a random position. And I'm going to go to random, and it's going to be, let's say, 100, and the X is horizontally, so 100, and then we have 1920. Let's see, probably let's do 200, and 1920. We'll say 1700. So what it's going to do is it's going to set a random position in between 200 and 1700. So if I just close that for a second here, it's going to take somewhere in between, here and here. It's going to set it somewhere up there, just like that. Now we also need to set the Y here, and I'm going to say that the Y is probably about 700 to 100. All right, and what I'm looking there for is I'm actually looking at the position. So if we set it to anywhere, it could end up hitting these blocks here. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say it's roughly 700 to maybe about 100 there. So let's hop back into here, and we'll say random, and you need to put in the bracket there, and we'll go 100, 700. Very, very simple stuff here. But there's another problem, is that if we drop it here on the drop, it doesn't necessarily work here. This is pretty much on any drop here. In fact, we can actually just run this here. So if we drop it, it will simply put it into a random position, which actually looks kind of cool. Okay, just simply we drop it here, and if we do that here, it works. The other thing you can do is that if it isn't connecting to another box there, we can go and add that in. But for the most part, this works. So I'm going to copy this 6 times, and then we have to replace the object with, of course, the green, and then replace the object orange, replace the object pink. And you can see that I'm doing it in the same order. It's really important that you keep a systematic, whatever that system is, you just make sure you want to keep a systematic process there. So we have all that here, and we need to replace this object too, and we're just simply just go with green. We're going to replace this object, go with orange. And I know this seems a little bit tedious, but it's just kind of the way it works. Okay, purple and yellow. Okay, so there we go. And so if we kind of run this here, if I drag it, it kind of just moves over. But if I go and actually play the game correctly, it actually works too. And it even works if I drag it here onto the wrong box. It just kind of moves it to a random location, which actually is pretty cool. Now we could add in some code to snap it back to its original location, but this is not only easier, it actually makes it's not only easier, but it works just the same. And when you're making your projects, you want to make sure that if you get a similar effect with half as much work, you definitely want to do that. Just because, especially as an indie developer, time is not on your side, and the world is not on your side. So you want to make sure that your game is in the hands of players as quickly as possible. That concludes the tutorial.